Okay, we are recording.
Good morning and good afternoon to you all, and thank you for joining us for this keynote conversation. 6 hours into GDDF 2022 and many more to go, it is my pleasure to welcome Doreen Bogdan-Martin, Director of Telecommunication Development Bureau of the International Telecommunication Union, ITU, to the main stage. My name is Manisha Aryal, and I'm the Global Practice Lead for Digital Development at Chemonics and one of the co-hosts of this forum. Doreen has been advising governments around the world on policy and regulatory issues for over 3 decades. She led ITU's strategic planning and membership department for a decade between 2008 and 2018 before being elected to this role, and was instrumental in establishing the Broadband Commission for Sustainable Development. She was also an architect of the annual Global Symposium for Regulators and the director of ITU's first Global Youth Summit. Doreen currently oversees ITU's ongoing contribution to the Equals Global Partnership for Gender Equality in the Digital Age, and is leading ITU's collaboration with UNICEF on the GIGA project to connect all of the world's schools. Doreen has also been key in launching global initiatives on school connectivity, innovation, digital transformation, and youth engagement, and to bring youth voices to the table. Welcome, Doreen. It is truly an honor to have you with us today. It is said that ITU...
Oops, sorry. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I should have not jumped in.
No, I think it's perfectly fine. I should have stopped.
Yes. This is probably where it's good to. Okay, maybe just quickly go over the run of show, just so you're clear when Doreen can kind of jump in, and then when you can jump in, Manisha. So you're gonna do that. By the way, that was a fantastic intro. So hopefully you can.
Amanda, let me know when we can start again.
Okay, I'll just ask John to turn off his video and then we'll be ready to go. Yeah, thanks, John.
Good morning and good afternoon to you all, and thank you for joining us for this keynote conversation. 6 hours into GDDF 2022 and many more to go, it is my pleasure to welcome Doreen Bogdan-Martin, Director of the Telecommunication Development Bureau of International Telecommunication Union, ITU, to the main stage. My name is Manisha Aryal, and I'm the Global Practice Lead for Digital Development at Chemonics and one of the co-hosts of this forum. Doreen has been advising governments around the world on policy and regulatory issues for over 3 decades. She's led ITU's strategic planning and membership department for a decade between 2008 and 2018 before being elected to this role, was instrumental in establishing the Broadband Commission for Sustainable Development, was an architect of the annual Global Symposium for Regulators, and the director of ITU's first Global Youth Summit. Doreen currently oversees ITU's ongoing contribution to Equals Global Partnership for Gender Equality in the Digital Age, and is leading ITU's collaboration with UNICEF on the GIGA project to connect all the world's schools. Doreen has been key in launching global initiatives on school connectivity, innovation, digital transformation, and youth engagement, and to bring youth voices to the table. Welcome, Doreen. It is truly an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Manisha. It's so great to be here.
So it is said that ITU is one of the most important agencies in digital development. What makes the ITU so important? Why should digital development practitioners care about ITU's work?
Well, I do think we're one of the most important agencies. We're also one of the oldest. We're not necessarily widely known because much of what we do is not actually seen. Because of the work of the ITU, people can use their phones, people can watch TV, people can listen to the radio and use the internet, because it's the ITU that actually assigns the spectrum behind it, allocates those orbital slots for satellites in space. We make the technical standards to ensure that equipment and services are interoperable. And we also support countries in rolling out their digital transformation strategies with that needed regulatory and policy framework. I think it's critical for development practitioners to understand, of course, the importance of connectivity and to understand the important mission and mandate of the ITU. I think the work that we do and the role of connectivity actually impacts every single sustainable development goal. And I think it's a critical enabler to every country's national economy.
So where can ICTs have the greatest impact on sustainable development goals? I mean, would you share a few examples that you've seen from around the world?
I would say in every single goal, but I'll try to be specific. Of course, from the start of the discussions on sustainable development goals, we were big advocates in New York and in other circles that we should have our own SDG. Some push to have SDG 18 on connectivity, and others have said, well, it's actually SDG 0. It's the kind of hole in the donut as the SDGs are, you know, in a circular fashion displayed. But I guess in terms of specifics, let me take two specifics. So I'm going to take SDG 4, which is on quality education, and also SDG 5 on gender equality. I think when the pandemic broke out, lockdowns happened, and it, you know, from one day to the next, the world went completely virtual. We saw the impact that that had on young people in particular, and we had 1.6 billion learners that their, you know, education and learning was impacted, and many of those young people didn't have access to online learning. They didn't have access to connectivity, and in many cases, they didn't have access to sufficient connectivity. And so that's where the GIGA project that you mentioned, our work with UNICEF, where we have an initiative to connect every school on the planet to the internet, and of course, every young person to information, opportunity, and choice. We kicked off the project back in 2019. We've mapped over 1 million schools in 44 countries. We're currently working actively in 19 countries, with many more having expressed interest. And we've impacted 1.3 million students and teachers, which is quite exciting. And I actually had an opportunity to visit a GIGA school a couple of weeks ago when I was in Kigali. And so you see the impact when you bring the internet to a school, the impact for the learners, of course, but the impact also for the teachers. The access to those resources is incredibly transformational. I guess the other one I would mention is SDG 5 on gender equality. You know, countries have missed out. I like this number, this statistic. Countries have missed out on $1 trillion in GDP because women have been excluded from the digital world. And that's just, it's incredible. We do have a digital gender gap. We have fewer women and girls actually connected to the internet. We have women and girls having less digital literacy skills, so that when they do get connected, that connectivity is not as transformational because they don't have the skills. And of course, we also have less representation of women in the technology sector. And imagine what the world would look like if we were able to close that digital gender gap. We have created something called the Equals Global Partnership. It's all about bridging the digital gender gap. We have over 100 partners that have joined forces with us to close the access gap, to close the skills gap, and of course, to close the women in technology gap. On April 28th, the world celebrated Girls in ICT Day, and it really brought attention to the lack of representation in the technology sector and what that means for equipment development, what it means for service rollout, what it means for applications. And of course, when we think about spaces like artificial intelligence, machine learning, what happens to those algorithms if women are not represented equally at the table. So it's a big issue, big concerns. But of course, if we bring digital opportunities to women and girls, we can make huge strides in achieving SDG 5.
Wow. So last fall, I understand ITU launched the Partner to Connect Digital Coalition with the goal of bridging the digital divide by 2030. How is this coalition different from other digital divide initiatives?
That's a great question. So Partner to Connect was launched at the General Assembly last year. It's a huge step, I believe, in implementing the UN Secretary General's roadmap for digital cooperation. And I think it also serves as a blueprint for the future UN Global Digital Compact, which is referenced in the UN Secretary General's Our Common Agenda. Partner to Connect is a leadership level partnership platform open to all stakeholders. And the focus is driving access to meaningful connectivity and digital transformation in the hardest to connect communities. So with a big focus, but not exclusively, but a big focus on least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, and small island developing states. Of course, industry has been working hard, governments have been working hard to get people connected. But until now, we really haven't taken a holistic approach. We haven't taken that cross-sectoral approach that's so needed in bridging the digital divide. And so with this initiative, we're pulling together all stakeholders right across all industry groups, right across the complex ICT ecosystem. Because for us, we believe that business as usual is not going to get us there. We have 2.9 billion people that have never, ever connected to the internet, and we need to connect them urgently. And the only way we're going to get there is if we're bold, if we're creative, and if we come up with innovative kinds of partnerships, sort of hybrid partnerships between the traditional and the new players, so that everyone everywhere can enjoy equitable and affordable access to these life-changing digital platforms and services. It's very action-focused, Partner to Connect. We've called on stakeholders to come forward, make a commitment. We have come up with 4 distinct but interrelated focus areas. So we're focused on connecting people. We're focused on empowering communities. We're focused on fostering digital ecosystems and incentivizing investments. And through a multi-stakeholder process, we have developed an action framework of all of the pieces needed to achieve those goals of the focus areas. We launched our pledging platform just a month ago. We've had pledges made by Intelsat, by Microsoft, Vodafone, Airtel. We had our first country pledge come in from Ghana, the Dominican Republic. We're working with development agencies, with GIZ in Germany, the Digital Impact Alliance, and we're really excited. We've had conversations with almost every ITU member state out there talking to the private sector, civil society, and we believe that this kind of initiative is needed to move the needle in connecting the unconnected by our target 2030 date.
So you mentioned the role of partners. And so if I'm a company or an organization in a developing country that is neither government, large donor, or like a multi-stakeholder agency, right? How do I participate in Partner to Connect? What can Partner to Connect do for me?
Well, that's a great question. Partner to Connect is built on the principles of inclusion, partnership, as you noted. And of course, it's SDG focused digital development. We've recognized that progress can only be achieved if we do have all stakeholders. So it's regardless of size or sector that we want players to come forward. I think it's only through that kind of process that we can move the needle. So we do need local grassroots organizations from developing countries that are active on the ground. They have the best expertise, they have the best understanding of the needs of the communities that they work in. So their role is absolutely essential in advancing Partner to Connect.
And beyond Partner to Connect, how can ITU hope to expand meaningful connectivity, right? That is like, by meaningful connectivity, I mean quality internet access that is reliable, useful, affordable, and provide critical services to people in the developing world.
Yeah. Well, of course, it's not enough, as you just noted. It's not enough just to bring a connection to people. So we need to make sure that that access is accessible, that it's affordable, and of course that the speed is sufficient and the quality as well, in order for it to be useful. You know, someone logging in every few weeks at an internet cafe miles away from their home, we count them as connected, but are they meaningfully connected? I don't think so. And that's really what we're trying to achieve, trying to make sure that people also have those necessary digital skills to take advantage of that. Also trying to make sure that content is relevant, available in local languages. And so what we have done, working again in a multi-stakeholder process and linked to the Digital Cooperation Roadmap, is we have actually defined meaningful connectivity, and we have come up with 15 targets for universal and meaningful connectivity. So they're prioritizing universality, technology, and affordability. I won't go through all of them, but looking at things like, of course, 100% of the population, age 15 and above, 100% of households, 100% of businesses, et cetera. But these targets are really meant to help countries and also to help stakeholders to be able to prioritize their interventions, as well as to monitor progress and evaluate the effectiveness of policy.
So this year at the GDF, you know, one of the conference themes is climate change mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. How do you see increased internet connectivity supporting these goals without becoming an even greater driver of emissions, right? Whether it's through mineral or rare earths mining, power consumption, e-waste production, how do you think that is possible?
Yeah. Well, it's true that the digital sector can contribute adversely to the environment. The ICT sector is energy and materials intensive. So as we build an inclusive digital society, we do need to introduce greener equipment and services and infrastructure. I mean, think about all the data centers that are being rolled out. I think that we need to be very conscious of the fact that we have to find sustainable digital solutions so that we can ensure a greener future for all. I do think that connectivity and sustainability together have the potential to reinforce each other. Making ICTs widely available can also help to support technological advancement and innovation. When we think about things like mitigation in terms of climate change, adaptation, resilience, and of course, things like reducing disaster risks. Of course, as we become more connected, responsible innovation and environmental considerations have to become integral. I would say integral in the design, in the development, and the deployment of digital technologies, especially given the speed at which technologies are developing in areas like artificial intelligence or the Internet of Things. Of course, the UN Secretary General recently announced this ambitious target aiming for everyone on Earth to be protected by early warning systems against increasingly extreme weather and climate change within the next 5 years. That's a big challenge, but I also think it's an exciting opportunity. It's an exciting opportunity for us to work with countries to implement the necessary policies and actions for climate change mitigation, as well as adaptation. The use of data captured by ICTs is going to be important to track progress and to enable action. I did want to just quickly reference 2 points. The first is that the ITU, through its standardization work, is working on green standards, of course, to reduce waste and also to set targets in terms of global e-waste recycling rates. And the second point being that we are working with countries to establish national emergency telecommunications plans, but focused as well on setting up e-waste policies. So working with countries on the policy front, and then helping countries to actually roll out their e-waste management. The amount of e-waste, it's just mind-blowing when we think about it, and the efforts that can be made in managing that waste can actually be revenue generating for countries. So again, it's a big challenge, but I think it's also an incredible opportunity.
Right. So, there are people from all over the world attending this conference, right? And from Africa, from Asia, from the Middle East, from Europe, all over. And these are passionate digital development practitioners, right? So if there's one message you would like them to go away with, what would it be about ITU? How can they collaborate? How can they cooperate? What can they do with ITU at like an individual passionate practitioner level?
I would say count on the ITU as your partner in digital transformation and in the rollout of any digital development work you may be doing. We all need to come together to join forces, get all hands on deck so that together we can connect the 2.9 billion people that don't have access and really unleash for all people the great potential that digital technologies hold for transforming the world.
Thank you, Doreen. It has been such a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you for the rich conversation for such a nuanced overview of ITU's work and your own perspectives. I will wrap this conversation more knowledgeable than I was 30 minutes ago. Thank you again, and very best wishes to you.
Thank you so much, Manisha. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, team, how long do we have? Can we add more questions? Doreen was very succinct. I was sort of like expecting a little bit rambling sort of like answers, but you are so amazingly succinct.